I'd like to call this meeting of the Caldwell County Board of Education to order. For the meeting of November the 10th, and tomorrow being Veterans Day, we are truly proud of all of our veterans. Do we have any veterans in the group today? If you would, please stand. Any veterans? Do we have others? Thank you so much, and certainly if you see veterans tomorrow, tell them how much we appreciate their service to our country, and maybe you'll have an opportunity to go to some of the celebrations around our county tomorrow for Veterans Day. Certainly many people on the board have gone to some of the school celebrations over the last few days, and that has been very, very nice to be a part of that. Also, I want to congratulate the election, of course, was last week, and I want to congratulate Dottie Darcy and Dwayne Knight, Joe Sims, and Teresa Branch. So thank you all for the hard work you put in. And we're just glad you're here with us this evening, and we know that many of you are here for the honors and recognition. And when that portion begins, if you would stay for the duration of that honors and recognition, we will give you an opportunity to leave as soon as that portion is over with. So we appreciate your help in that regard. Moving on with the agenda here, we have the invocation for the board, and fellow board member Mrs. Dottie Darcy is going to present that.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we give thanks for the beauty of this season and for the freedom to gather here to address the needs of our school system so that every child will have the opportunity for a happy and productive life. Give us wisdom and discernment as we make decisions affecting our children, teachers, and staff. On this eve of Veterans Day, we ask your special blessing on all those who served our country, that we might have the freedoms we enjoy today. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Next, I would like to ask all of you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and that is to be led by Granite Falls Middle School Project Unify students, Adam Smith, Justice Woods, Kenley Gilbert, Janessa Biddix, Chase Childers, Sydney Propes, Lexi Summerlin, and Brett Childers.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I want to thank the Granite Falls Project Unify students for being here with us this evening. The board has had the agenda for some time to review.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add item 16A, a closed session to discuss personnel for item 16A.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we approve as you have had it with the addition 16A that Dr. Stone has referred to? Is there
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is the approval of the minutes. And we had our regular board meeting on October the 13th, 2014, and the board has had an opportunity to look over the minutes. Do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes of October 13th, our regular board session, be approved as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes. On October 27th, we had our annual fall work session, and we also had a community board meeting that evening at West Caldwell High School. And we want to thank West Caldwell again for the hospitality they showed to us there. Do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes of our fall work session and our community board meeting?
I move we approve the minutes of both the fall work session and the community board meeting on October the 27th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion passes. Next, I wanted to mention a thing or two before we get into our honors and recognitions, and that is we had several to leave from the early college over the weekend and go to Washington, D.C., and they are going to be honored as a blue ribbon school there. So we're very, very proud of the Caldwell County Early College for being recognized as a blue ribbon school. Absolutely outstanding honor. In the state of North Carolina, there's only 2 high schools, and we have one here in our county, so it's something to really, truly be very proud of. And another honor is also coming to one of our own in this county. The principal at the early college, Mrs. Candace Hageman, is going to be presented with the Terrell Bell Award. And that is absolutely unbelievable. There's only 8 given in the entire United States. So she is receiving that award tomorrow. So we are truly very proud of her. Obviously, we will recognize her at a more appropriate time, as well as the middle college, the early college being a blue ribbon school. So we're very proud of those awards and honors there. At this time, the board will move down and we will recognize those that are on your agenda for honors and recognition. And I'd like to recognize Mrs. Libby Brown, Community Relations Director.
Good evening, Chairman Pennell and board members and Dr. Steve Stone, Superintendent. It is our honor again tonight to recognize students who have been selected at the school level to have their outstanding artwork entered into the Education Center Art Gallery. Their works of creativity and beauty have been selected to be on display this month in the Education Center. And as I call your name, students, these budding artists that we have in the crowd tonight, please come forward because you are going to receive a certificate of recognition and a certificate, well, not only a certificate, but a ribbon of recognition to wear home. So you're very important to us tonight. So we're going to start with Gamewell Elementary School. And Charmin Frizzell is principal, but she cannot be here this evening, so Anna Crooks is here. She's assistant principal. And Susan Sharp is the art teacher. So we're going to start with Brooklyn Hightower. And Brooklyn is a 4th grader at Gamewell Elementary School. Is Brooklyn here this evening? Where's Anna? She's not here. Okay. How about Jackson Felder? He's not here. How about Kylie Oliver? She's here. Okay, so Kylie's here this evening. So Kylie is our 4th grader from Gamewell Elementary School. Where is Kylie?
Kylie, will you come down with us?
That's okay, Kylie. We have Mrs. Crooks with us. Okay, from Hudson Elementary School, we have Adam Windmiller, principal, and Emily Eisenhower, art teacher. Emily Crisp Bridges, first grade. Is Emily here? Or Paige Green, fourth grade. Okay, Paige is our first grade soul. And I know that Austin Harrison, third grade, is here because I talked with them earlier. So here comes Austin. And Kenya Ramirez, second grade. Kenya? Then we're going to move to Lower Creek Elementary School. Leanne Fry is here, she's principal, and Stephanie Woody Groeschel is the art teacher. So we're going to start with this young man. I know he's here this evening, Ammon Blanton. So Ammon is in the third grade. Tristan Nichols, first grade. And Emily Elliott, fourth grade. Okay, we have one more elementary school. Valmead Elementary, and Carol Sturgis is principal. She's here supporting her students tonight. Stephanie Woody Groeschel is also the art teacher at Valmead Elementary School. Ricky Murillo. So is Ricky here this evening? He's a first grader. Let's see, Carol, where's Carol? He's not here this evening. Okay. What about Jaden Phillips, second grader? Is Jaden here? Yes, Jaden is here. And Leah Washington, first grader from Valmead Elementary School. So parents, get your cameras out. This is a photo opportunity. We're going to have the students line up in front of the board members. Students, you want to move this way in front of the board members?
Go ahead and shake everybody's hand.
So we're going to have a Kodak moment.
Kate, did you want to come up and get your picture taken with the whole group up here? You sure? No? Was it Kate? Kylie, I'm sorry, Kylie? All right. How about you come right here in the middle? All right. Now we go. We're all set. Now you got to keep smiling, everybody, until all those cameras are done. Wow.
Now we're going to switch from artwork to reading. And we're going to recognize some million-word readers in the Caldwell County Schools. In the first 9 weeks of school, 10 students in the district have read 1 million words through the Accelerator Reader Program. With this group alone, 10 million words have been read in less than 60 calendar days. That's pretty amazing. Okay, very impressive. Yes. We are going to start with the first student who reached this milestone this school year? Okay. His name is Nicholas Thompson, and Nicholas is a 7th grader at William Lenore Middle School. The principal there is Lisa Vaughn. So Nicholas, I think, is on his way to 2 million words. Is that right? He read 1 million words, I think, in less than 40 days, 40 calendar days. So we have calculated he read like 20,000 words a day. So this young man deserves recognition tonight. So come on, Nicholas, you are our first million-word reader from William Lenore Middle School, and we're very proud of you. So we have 10 students, so Nicholas is the first. We're going to start with the other 2 students who are elementary students. So elementary students are also doing a good job in reading. Davis W. Smith, 3rd grader from Granite Falls Elementary, and Chris Green is here. He's his principal. Chloe Bullington, 5th grader from Whitnell Elementary School, and Andy Berry is her principal, proudly standing in the back taking photographs, and Anna Marie Stuckey is her media coordinator, and she's here supporting her. So these are our 2 elementary students. We're going to move now to the 7 middle school students. Anya Blackwelder. Anya is from Collettsville School, and she's a 7th grader. I haven't seen Anya this evening, so, okay, Anya isn't here. Well, since you asked, 1,010,749 words. Okay, so that's pretty good, isn't it? Okay. Sydney Probst, 7th grader at Granite Falls Middle School. And I know Sydney's here, and Bill Schreiber, her principal, is here supporting her. Alyssa Taylor, 6th grader, Hudson Middle School, and Bill Griffin is here supporting his reader of 1 million words. Joseph G. Montalongo, 7th grader at Oak Hill School, and he is supported tonight by his family and principal Chris Ackerman. So congratulations. And our remaining 3 middle school students are from William Lenore Middle School, and Lisa Vaughn is very proud of these students. Kelly Hauk, 6th grade, William Lenore Middle School. Grayson Clark, 6th grade, William Lenore Middle School. And I know Grayson's here with his family. And Kimden Clement, 6th grader, William Lenore Middle School. So we are very proud of these youngsters and their reading habits. If you want to gather in the center, parents, please feel free to take a picture.
All right, let's kind of come back a little bit, back up a little bit. Make it like a circle. Okay, come on here on this end. Kim, absolutely. Call everybody Caitlin, don't they? All right, keep smiling. Keep smiling.
Should we ask them their favorite book? Do it.
All right, go down the line and tell us your favorite book.
If you want to offer your favorite book. Mockingbird. Harry Potter. Divergent. What was that? Brissinger? Blue. Okay. We have another one for that? Maze Runner. That's a read for William Lenore Middle School this year. Hunger Games. So I think those are familiar titles for most of us adults too. It's nice to read with our children. We do have one student, an art student, who has shown up, and we'd like to recognize him from Valmead Elementary School, Ricky Murillo. Ricky is in the first grade, so this is a big opportunity for him. Did anyone else come in? Okay.
All right, Ricky, you got to make us look good. All job. One more, Ricky. Keep smiling. We got one. This one behind you. Yep. Good job. Good job.
We're very proud of our art students and our readers tonight. And I know parents are too.
The board members just vote.
For the past 8 years, the Caldwell County Board of Education has been enlightened and enriched by the board membership of Dr. Helen Hall, beginning on December the 4th, 2006. During her tenure on the Board of Education, Dr. Hall has served as Vice Chairman of the Board of Education from December 2008 to 2010. She also served as Chairman in 2010. Serving with Dr. Helen Hall has been an honor and a privilege. She is a first-rate board member in character and in professionalism, and has completely dedicated her efforts to the education and success of the students of Caldwell County Schools. She exemplifies and models true leadership, serving on behalf of the best interests of students, parents, faculty, staff, and all those involved in public education. The Caldwell County school system has experienced many accomplishments during Dr. Helen Hall's tenure on the board. Number one, constructing a new William Lenore Middle School, improving the graduation rate in Caldwell County to the highest level ever recorded into the school district, just under 91%, preserving jobs for our employees when the district suffered state and federal budget cuts, and for implementing new academic programs. With Dr. Hall's many years of experience in education as a teacher, principal, and administrator, she has always provided a depth of knowledge, wisdom, and caring in her role as a Board of Education member. It has been the school district's great honor and pleasure to have Dr. Hall serving on the Caldwell County Board of Education, and indeed a true joy to have served with her, and I'm sure the entire board would certainly agree with that. So Dr. Hall, would you come forward? We have a plaque, and it says, presented to Dr. Helen Hall in recognition for dedicated service on the Caldwell County Board of Education, 2006-2014.
I'll be honest, it's hard to speak when your cheeks are red and you didn't expect to be recognized and just totally caught off guard. But I can certainly tell each and every one of you that it has been my pleasure and my privilege to serve on the board and to serve in many capacities in Caldwell County as a teacher and administrator and whatever other roles, because I love this county, I love this work, and it's important to me, it's always been important to me to make the most positive difference possible within my means. And I've been so blessed and so honored to work with a board that's here, because we're not just the Board of Education, we're a true team. We've been that, and it's helped us work together in harmony in many things. We don't even have to agree on everything, but one thing we agree without question is that we're in service to the students, the teachers, the leaders, all the administrators, and the whole education community. We're invested in making the best difference that we possibly can. And I trust that as I leave this position, that the board has it in, I believe, they have it in their hearts, that they're going to continue the work that we've been given over the years. So thank you, I love you. You've been here for me, we've been here together. Thank you for that. And thank all of you for electing me the 2 terms that I have served. They've meant the world to me, and I hope they've made a world of difference.
Now, Dr. Hall, you have to stand here and smile and make it look good.
Okay, now would be the appropriate time if you need to leave for dinner or homework or whatever it might be. And we do truly appreciate your
Or
being
reading,
here.
Darryl.
And have a safe trip home.
Darryl, some of them may want to get a jump on that 2 million words.
And you're welcome to stay if you want to be here for the rest of the meeting. We're going to continue with the agenda, and I want to recognize Mr. Robert Brown. He's the CPA with Boggs, Crump, and Brown. He's going to present our 2013-2014 audit report. Well, first of all, and also to recognize our finance director, David.
Johnson.
We're glad you're here
Okay, thank you.
to help out and provide this
Why you didn't
for
want
us.
to sit over there with them?
Since nothing changed, you got the same books.
Dave. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman Pennell, members of the board, Dr. Stone. My name is Robert Brown. I'm from Boggs, Crump and Brown, and I am here to present the results of the June 30, 2014 fiscal year end audit. And I would like to recognize my son, Davis Brown. He came for moral support today. I'm glad I brought him because he has goals now for reading. Immediate goals. So he may go home and try to achieve those goals now, hopefully. Like I said, I'm here to present the report, and usually I tend to focus more on the auditor's reports in the report, specifically the independent auditor's reports and the compliance opinions in the back of the report. So if you would turn with me to page 1 of your report. This is the independent auditor's report, which basically focuses on the financial section of the report. I kind of highlight some of the areas in the report that's important. The first part states we have audited the accompanying financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Caldwell County Board of Education as of and for the year ending June 30, 2014. And then the second paragraph, it lays out management's responsibility for the financial statements. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with the accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal controls relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. And then the third paragraph is the auditor's responsibility. Our responsibility as auditors is to express opinions on these financial statements based on our audit. And if you will turn with me to page 2. In page 2, we do express our opinions. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and of the Caldwell County Board of Education, and the respective changes in the financial position and cash flows where applicable. In other words, it's an unqualified opinion. I won't read too much more of that report. You know, you can read it in your spare time. It's a lot there. What I want to turn to now is the opinions in the back of the report. The compliance section, which starts on page 60. The first opinion there relates to internal control over financial reporting and on compliance over financial reporting. If you look at the paragraph, internal control over financial reporting. In planning and performing our audit of the financial statements, we consider the Caldwell County Board of Education's internal control over financial reporting to determine the audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances for the purpose of expressing our opinions on the financial statements, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the Caldwell County Board of Education's internal control. Accordingly, we do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of the board's internal control. If you look with me at the last paragraph, our consideration of internal control was for the limited purpose described in the first paragraph of this section and was not designed to identify all deficiencies in internal control that might be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Given these limitations during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. So in the internal control portion of over financial reporting, there was no findings.
And in English, that means that's very good.
Yes. I know this is kind of, this accounting jargon is kind of,
It's a different language.
it's a different language, yes.
Heavy duty.
It takes a special person to be able to do this. The second part of this first opinion on page 61 is compliance and other matters. As part of obtaining reasonable assurance about whether the Caldwell County Board of Education's financial statements are free from material misstatement, we perform tests of its compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements, non-compliance with which could have a direct and material effect on the determination of financial statement amounts. However, providing an opinion on compliance with those provisions was not an objective of our audit, and accordingly, we do not express such an opinion. The results of our test disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. So the first opinion was clean. If you will turn with me to page 62, the next two opinions relate to each major federal program that we audited and each major state program. The first paragraph, we have audited the Caldwell County Board of Education, North Carolina compliance with the types of compliance requirements described in the OMB Circular A133 Compliance Supplement and the Audit Manual for governmental auditors in North Carolina, issued by the Local Government Commission, that could have a direct and material effect on each of the Caldwell County Board of Education's major programs for the year ended June 30, 2014. Management is responsible for compliance with the requirements of laws, regulations, contracts, and grants applicable to its federal programs. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on compliance for each of the Caldwell County Board of Education's major federal programs based on our audit of the types of compliance requirements referred to above. If you look on page 63, is our opinion on the compliance over major federal programs. In our opinion, the Caldwell County Board of Education complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major federal programs for the year ended June 30, 2014. And in just a second, I will point out which programs we audited as major. As is usual, there's two sections to each report. One's on compliance, one's on internal control. This is the next paragraph is relates to internal control over major federal programs. In planning and performing our audit of compliance, we consider the Caldwell County Board of Education's internal control over compliance with the types of requirements that could have a direct and material effect on a major federal program to determine the auditing procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances for the purpose of expressing our opinion on compliance for each major federal program and to test and report on internal control over compliance in accordance with OMB Circular A133, but not for the purpose of expressing opinion on the effectiveness of internal control over compliance. Accordingly, we do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of the Caldwell County Board of Education's internal control over compliance. If you'll look with me, two paragraphs up from the bottom. Our consideration of internal control over compliance was for the limited purpose described in the first paragraph of this subsection and was not designed to identify all deficiencies in internal control over compliance that might be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. We did not identify any deficiencies in internal control over compliance that we consider to be material weaknesses. So in other words, for the major federal programs we audited, we have a clean opinion. And on page 64 relates to state programs. I won't go through all the information in this report as it is similar to the federal programs, but the bottom line is, if you look on page 65, which is the opinion on major state programs, in our opinion, the Caldwell County Board of Education complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major state programs for the year ended June 30, 2014. And also, if you look under the internal control over compliance over major state programs, we did not find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that were required to be reported. So, in other words, a clean opinion on your state programs. If you look with me on page 67 and 68, I'll just point out at the bottom of page 67 the major federal programs that we audited this year, and on page 68, about part ways down, middle of the page, is the major state programs we audited. And if you look on page 69, for the year in June 30, 2014, the corrective action plan, there was none required. So. And then on page 72 and 73 is the schedule of your federal and state awards for the year, just to point it out. But since I won't go through all the details in the middle of this report, we met with the Finance Committee, I guess, about a week ago, and I think what if you did read through it, you would get that the board is in a healthy fund balance situation, and for the year, the general fund had a positive gain. And I think if you look at your proprietary funds, the school food service fund and the child care fund, they all had increases in net position for the year. So those are certainly to be commendable. That's all I have going through the report. In closing, I'd just like to thank David and his staff certainly for having patience with us. And I know it's probably a record this year of the number of programs we audited, so we're probably here longer than usual. And certainly his staff, without his staff, we certainly wouldn't be able to do our work in a timely fashion. So everyone involved, certainly needs to be commended. So,
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Sounds like an excellent report.
yes, it is.
Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I just want to comment, we certainly appreciate the hard work, and certainly with the Finance Department. And Lex, I think what I heard throughout that was that good report, no findings. I hope all that kind of came through, but congratulations to the Board of Education and to the Finance Committee for such a good, clean audit. That's
Yes.
a good indication that the district is well managed by the board and the finance.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. And we didn't have any as of 4:30 this afternoon, so we're going to move on with the agenda. And next is the public hearing. So I would like to open the public hearing portion of our agenda at this time. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak on this matter? We generally try to allocate 3 minutes, but we'll let you say what you have to say. So do we have any that want to speak? All right, go ahead.
And just so the public will know, the matter at hand is the naming of High Brighton High School softball field.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Jim Blanton, a Spanish teacher at High Brighton High School, and I'm also the soccer coach and the softball coach there. 12 years ago, I took over as a head coach of the High Brighton softball team, and I inherited a field that was constructed sometime in the early 80s. The vocational classes at High Brighton had built 2 dugouts and a backstop just to give them an area to participate or to play. Fast pitch softball didn't start at High Brighton High School till around 1997 or 98, and since that time there had been very few to no renovations to the field. David Pope came on board as a parent in the fall of 2006. He was the greatest blessing to High Brighton softball ever. David Pope was one of the hardest workers I've ever met. When he came on board, he wanted to know what he could do to help turn our field around and make it something the girls could be proud of. At that time, our field was one of the worst, if not the worst, in the area. We had a swampy, sewage-like creek that ran alongside the field. We had no fence, no lights, no scoreboard, no flagpole, no bleachers, no announcer's box, and nowhere to store our team equipment. We had the backstop and these worn-down dugouts where we couldn't even stand because the roof was so low. And a little bit of dirt was there as well. But David Pope had a vision bigger than I could even imagine. He had a love for every single girl that ever put on a High Brighton softball jersey. He never looked for recognition or gain. He was the one that got all of my parents involved in building that field. He led by example. He worked hundreds of hours on the field. Through his leadership and example, we got a fence, multiple batting cages, bullpens, new dugouts, a scoreboard, a flagpole, announcer's box, a storage building, and the creek has now got pipes put in it. It's been covered with dirt, and it has grass planted. You wouldn't even know it was even there. In my opinion, we now have one of the finest, most beautiful fields around, and many people can attest to that. David would not take any credit for that. He would have recognized all of his friends and all of the High Brighton softball family for all they did as well. I, as the coach, could name many, many parents and community members who helped build our field, but David Pope was one of the pioneers. David was the one that people wanted to be down there working with. He was the kind of volunteer we all dream of having to help our programs. He had a heart of gold and would give anyone the shirt off his back. Many nights as he would work side by side, he would tell me, "Coach, go home. I'll take care of this. You have 2 little ones at home that need you." I'm proud to have known David Pope and consider him one of my best friends and one of the finest, humblest men I've ever known. His spirit lives on through his family and through the wonderful softball field we now have at High Brighton. Not a day goes by when I walk onto that field that I don't think of him and all he helped do. As some of you may know, he died from cancer, which came on very aggressively after he and his daughter were hit head-on by a drunk driver when they were returning from a softball pitching lesson. In conclusion, I ask that you please allow our field to be named after one of the finest men to have ever volunteered at High Brighton High School, who gave wholeheartedly of himself and gave our girls, our community, and our school something to be proud of. David Pope. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Okay, do we have another? Okay.
Good evening. My name's Mary Bruce, and I've been involved in the softball program for at least 7 years, I believe. Ashlyn was a year further along than Jessie. She was a sophomore, Jessie was a freshman. We had no experience with the softball field or any of the coaches when my daughter first came to High Brighton. Actually, first time she ever met Coach Blanton was during the summer workout before the school year. She went to a meeting at the school where they do every year. Said, "Come if you interested in playing softball." And at that point, she gave them my email address. And man, when these guys get your email address, you're locked in. But every year, as they've done since then and before, they sent the text out to me. If you were having a cleanup day, come and help. And honestly, before that day, I couldn't point him or David Pope out in the lineup. I didn't know who they were, had no experience. The only people I knew was the few people that I knew from Oak Hill that was there also with their kids. So my first impression was like he's described. You show up and you're saying, okay, what needs to be done? But the first thing that hits you is the pungent smell from the creek. You smell it before you ever see it. And laying on the ground beside the creek was a broomstick with a little metal scoop on it to get the ball out of the creek, because they probably melt the skin off of them if the girls went into the creek to get the ball out. But then I noticed there's construction wall laying there, the orange construction wall laying there that they had just taken down when they got the small piece of fence that they got. One backstop, he describes it, and I'm going to describe it my way, the dugouts. To me, it looked like a horse stable, and if their dugouts was the horse stable, then the stall was definitely where they had to keep their materials. It looked like a homemade barn door that was kind of leaning and just a dirt ground. And of course, from where we're at now, I can tell you everything that they didn't have. But the one thing that I noticed, and I think when a lot of people first volunteer, that they notice, they're gauging the people that are already established in the program, and they're gauging the cause, and if everybody's treating everybody with respect, and if they have pride and really have a vision with where they want it to go, even if they don't have anything. And I believe that's the key to picking up new volunteers. We're always asking ourselves, how do you get more people to volunteer? And I believe it's that first impression that people get when they first decide to become involved in a program or a cause. And aside from the way everything looked, I was gauging the people around other than the people that I knew. And I noticed that everybody had a mutual respect for each other. And all the girls was laughing and having a good time, even though they were working. And the parents was always talking about, what can we do? What can we do to make this program better? We know we don't have much, and honestly, we know we're not going to get a whole lot of support from, because it's a new program. It hadn't established itself. And but they were all driven to do better. Even if they had to get out and do everything themselves, and a lot of movers and shakers. But the one thing I noticed was this middle-aged, slim gentleman with gray hair, standing, soft-spoken, standing in the middle of everybody. And everybody was congregating around him. Okay, David, what can we do now? He wasn't bossy. He wasn't telling everybody what to do, but everybody wanted to be beside him and a part of what he was taking care of. He was retired, and I say his full-time job was the High Brighton softball field. Throughout the years of just knowing David, I gravitated to him because he had a passion, and I enjoyed the next thing I could come to him and say, "Hey, David, I found this. David, we found some pipe. Let's get out there." And he went and day, and oh Willie, we was out there that backhoe with me buddy in that old creek that Saturday, setting that stuff up. But you know, I don't think about how bad it was because we knew we were all doing a common goal, and it was his demeanor and his way of getting people involved. And he never bragged about what he was doing, but you could tell he always said these girls deserve better, and that was his true desire, is to make the place respectful for them, at least the same as it was in the rest of the county. And it made everybody want to be a part. And for him to take a single mom of 3 who really was overworked, underpaid, and keeping up with them all the time, to encourage me and inspire me just to do and want to keep his hopes alive of what he wanted that softball field to turn into. He used to always say, "Hey, I think we can do this. I think we can do this." And like Jim said, "Man, you didn't think where we gonna get this stuff from." But my main thing is, I've been in program 7, 8 years, and it never, like he said, crosses my mind to think of David every time we do something different. And I remember the very evening that we, is us and a couple other parents was out there, and we turned those lights on for the first time, new softball lights. First thing that came to my mind is, I sure wish David was here to see this. This was one of his dreams, and he dreamed big, but he was a visionary. And he believed in that program, he believed in them girls when nobody else did. He would cook for them, gosh, we all remember, he'd cook for them if we'd go out to eat and they didn't have, all kids don't have pocket money all the time, and he'd hand it out to them. He was the calming voice inside that dugout, keeping them focused and going, and he never did it for any accolades. He did it because he had a passion for the program. And I think if we can name this field after him, it not only represents what he did, but it represents what every parent worked beside him and since him has done. Mm-hmm. The true focus was on the girls and making it to where they can hold their heads up high and they play better. And if they had a bunch of parents around them that respected the program and made it into something, even though we didn't have a whole lot to start with. So that's why I'm here today, to hopefully name the field after somebody that truly deserves it, and an honorable request after David Pope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bruce. Thank you. Do we have any others that would like to speak? Okay.
Good evening. I'm Lewis Wright. I was the principal when a lot of this stuff was going on, and maybe I could better introduce myself as I am the man that watched David Pope build that field, okay? Because I can't tell you how many days that I walked out in front of High Brighton High School. If you know the lay of the land, the softball field is down in the valley, and there's a reason the water all rushed there. And I would walk out front of the school a lot just to see how things are going. And I'd walk back in, I'd say, whose truck is on the softball field? Well, David Pope. And I can't tell you the number of days I walked out to see him out there working, and he never called me to tell me that he was going to be there or anything like that. I just knew somebody was on the field, it was going to be him. Never worried about it. One other thing I can say for David is that in all the conversations that we had in trying to build that softball field, I never heard him complain one time. He never complained about anything. All he said to me was, how can we get this done? When he wanted that pipe to drain the water off the field, which was a big thing and not a cheap thing either, by the way. Moving dirt and burying pipe, pretty expensive. I can remember him coming to me saying, if you could just find a way maybe to get me some pipe. And along with Mary Bruce and other parents, and a little money here, a little money there, a little donation here, a little donation there, the pipe showed up. And like I say, within 24 hours it was buried because David made that happen. So I couldn't think of a better person to name that field after than David Pope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Do we have any others that would like to speak on this subject?
Could I say something? Many people have done a lot of things for Highbright, but no one has done more for Highbright softball than David Pope.
Mr. Chairman, before we close the session, I know we have a lot of folks out here, so there may be others who maybe are a little bit more shy to talk, but if you are in support of the board naming the field, if you want to just stand so we can see, because I hate for you to come out here and us not have a feel for how much passion you bring to this subject. So, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We will take the information that we have and the comments that have been made tonight. We'll take this under advisement, and no action is going to be taken tonight. It will more than likely be on our December agenda. So we are glad that you're here, and with no further comments, we are closing the public hearing. And we do appreciate your being here and the contributions that you have made and telling us about the situation at High Brighton High School in the softball field. So thank you for being here. We're going to move along with the agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Steve Stone.
And before I get started, I do want to say to our public who are here, this is traditionally what we do at a public hearing. We hear, and then the next month they vote on it. So I don't want you to think we're not trying to avoid the issue or something, but we'll have it on the agenda for December. And if you need to leave to read those million words or something, feel free. But we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I want to call your attention to Exhibit 2, which is a brand new policy, Board Policy 5024, which is the EPI or the EpiPen device policy, the emergency one. This is a policy, what you have in front of you is a policy in black that was developed and crafted by the North Carolina School Boards Association. We did send it to our school nurses, and we asked them to look at it to make sure that it was appropriately something that we wanted to implement in Caldwell County. They did make some changes. You see those in red. The State School Boards Association is recommending 1 pen. We are recommending 2 pens and EpiPens, and these, I do want to call attention to the fact that these are emergency EpiPens. Mm-hmm. We do know we have a number of students who come to school every day who bring their own EpiPen, but this is for emergency, for new cases of people who may be allergic. So they have made corrections in red, nothing major, but I'd like to recommend that we place this policy on 1 month comment period and move for adoption in December. I do want to remind the board this is a requirement of state law that as of November 1, that we have these pens in place, and we do already have moved forward with it. The policy we hope that you will approve, but we already have 2 pens, and we're moving toward training 5 individuals in each building as a part of the how to administer the PO. So I'd like to place this policy on a 30-day comment period.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we put Board Policy 5024, the emergency epinephrine auto-injectors, on a 1 month comment period.
Second.
All right, any comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Stone. Next item on the agenda is Dr. Trish Johnson, Associate Superintendent for Human Resource Services.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Stone, several items for your attention this evening, beginning with Exhibit 3. Exhibit 3 includes personnel items that are usual and customary, but they are presented for your information only, requiring no action. Moving to Exhibit 4. Exhibit 4 includes usual and customary personnel items requiring action. I respectfully recommend approval of the items as they have been presented to you.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we approve the usual and customary personnel matters as have been presented?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the usual and customary matters that have been presented in Exhibit 4 be approved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Moving to Exhibit 5. Exhibit 5 are the requests for student transfers received since your last board meeting. We received 23 requests for student transfers. Of the 23 requests received, all 23 meet established criteria. Therefore, we recommend approval of the 23. If approved this evening, that will bring the total student transfer approval for the year 2014-15 to 527. I respectfully recommend approval of the transfer request.
Do I hear a motion that we approve the 2014-2015 student transfers as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve the 2014-15 transfers, number 23, as mentioned tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And the last item, Exhibit 6, is a follow-up to the board planning meeting in the discussion of the Senate Bill 744 Appropriations Act for differentiated pay plan for teachers. We were directed to bring back to the board for review a skeleton plan. And that's what we did, making sure that we looked at the requirements within the legislation to make sure we had identified those items that could be included in a plan if the board decides to submit a plan for approval to the General Assembly. Remembering that this year we have two options. We can submit a plan for consideration, or we can opt out by submitting a statement that we will not submit a plan. But what we have identified here is just a skeleton. We haven't had time to fully develop because we certainly need input from lots of people that would be affected by this, teachers and administrators. But we did get some initial input, and we looked at dividing the money, and we're not really sure, so we're working in the dark exactly how much money would be allocated. We know that the state has set aside $1 million for this fund initially, but it's to be divided among the 115 districts if it is allocated. We decided to look at dividing our funds into two major categories, one that would help with retention and hopefully recruiting of teachers to the areas that are difficult to fill. That, of course, would have to be identified each year by the number of positions that we have difficulty filling each year. But right now, we're looking at the areas such as exceptional children, math and science at both the middle and the secondary level. Are very difficult for us at this time to find personnel to fill the positions. So we would look at establishing a signing bonus that would be awarded 1/2 at the end of the first semester, making sure that we would keep people in place at least half the year, and the second half of that designated amount to be awarded at the end of the school year for those areas that are identified as difficult to fill positions. Then we looked at a second category. The remaining of funds that are allocated, I don't know how much that'll be, would be for differentiated pay. And we looked at those areas that the state is looking for us to identify for differentiation of salary. That would include student performance, teacher leadership, and when we started our plan last year, the principals, our administrators, were very insistent that we include teacher attendance, because research says that a teacher who is in the classroom makes a lot of difference with student performance. So we have not established how we would go about, we're talking about a point system so that we can be transparent and so that we can also be objective without subjectivity entering into the case. We also looked at the point system, the student growth coming directly from North Carolina Standard 6, which now is in the North Carolina Teacher Evaluation, and that is the value added score for student growth. We talked about establishing some points for teachers who either meet or exceed expected growth, and there will be a point awarded. Also, for teacher leadership, we identified those areas for teachers, for example, school teacher leadership, such as serving as grade level chair, departmental chair, school improvement team chair, those areas. Also, for any involvement a teacher may be involved in, district, state, or national involvement, including responsibilities that exceed just membership, but looking at total involvement, holding offices and participating in staff development, making national, state, or district presentations. And then any non-compensated extra duty assignments that would a teacher would participate in that they are not receiving a stipend. So that would go beyond those areas that they're currently receiving a stipend for. And as far as teacher assistant, we're looking at initially talking about establishing credit points for teachers who are 95 to 97% attendance based on those available dates, taking into consideration that we have to make accommodations for those who are on approved leave, or those who are participating in staff development activities. So finding a point system to go along with this. This, of course, will be a voluntary application process. So no one's required to participate. It would be a point system, and we thought about two different categories. That you would have a point range. In the first point range, say if we had a total of 50 points, if you scored, if all of this added up and you were between 45 and 50 points, you would receive 100% of the designated funds. Now, I'm just giving you examples. This is not where we are with establishing points. And then the second point range, if you were 40 to 44 points, you would receive 50% of the designated funds. So that's how we would look at trying to be fair, making it voluntary, which is very different from the required when we worked on the 25% teacher tenure elimination plan. Right now, that's our very rough skeleton of a plan, looking at what things would we put in place if you elect to submit a plan for the 2014-15 year. I'm not really sure when the funds will become available, if they will be awarded for this year or for the next school year.
Or if there will even be.
If there will even be any funds. And we know that they will not be reoccurring funds, perhaps. So this will not be added to salary. This would be bonus incentive.
All right.
So really what we're putting it out is just the skeleton, so no vote required, just so you'll have it. Begin the discussion. Trish will be working between now and December to try to flesh it out and maybe bring back something. But the real decision is the board needs to look at this and whatever we present in December, or decide that we don't really want to send a plan.
The plan,
some districts
yes,
are opting for that.
The plan must be submitted to the General Assembly by January 15th, 2015.
Any questions?
I guess the one thing that occurred to me when we were looking at the student performance piece, and I agree that growth is the best way to do that, but one of the things that and you may have already figured this out, that I was thinking, let's see, in ABC Elementary School, Mrs. Smith in the second grade has 17 students, and in XYZ Elementary School, Mrs. Jones has 25. So will there be a way, if you have a small class versus a large class, do you see what I'm asking? So,
unfortunately, I think, and I'm not one of those people, whatever they call them, whatever they are, that can really tell you how the numbers go together. But I think that when we get the rating score, and it's only rated at does not meet expectation, meets expectations, expected growth, or exceeds expected growth. I think the size of the class is taken into consideration into the formula of determining.
Okay. No, I didn't know if it was, so.
It's a very complex formula that SAS Institute puts together, and it's unthinkable.
And then you have the factor of the achievement level of the students with each teacher.
Mhm.
which creates another factor. So, that can
That's
be
okay.
difficult.
But one of the requirements for the differentiated pay plan is that it includes something for student growth,
Right. Right.
some way
Thank
to
you.
award teachers.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Associate Superintendent for Education Program Services, Dr. Carol Burns.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Stone, on October the 22nd, you listened very patiently to the school improvement plans of the 26 schools, and we come tonight asking for your approval of those 26 plans. Those plans will be for this year and next year. Those are 2-year plans. I think the principals, the ones I listened to, did an excellent job. We have had a conversation since then, though, about jargonese and acronyms, and I think they know, don't they, Chris, just speaking plain English. They've had their lesson and so forth. They understood everything they were saying to you.
I'm sure they did.
They really did.
We did.
But in watching some of the board members, I could say, what are they talking about? But they had so much they wanted to tell you, it was easier to put it in an acronym. And then I think they realized since then that they talk in a language of their own.
Sort of like the auditor?
Yes.
Right.
It's a whole new language. We do ask that you approve these, and when you do this, I want you to really understand all of these pieces go together. All of the statistical information, testing data we have for this year and last year, of course. All of these plans, that's about 2/3 of the strategic plan. The rest of it now is going to be public opinion and what the citizens of the county and all of us working together decide we want for our school system. So this will be a big part of the strategic plan that we're working on this year. So you've already had your fingers in it. We do ask that you approve these 26 plans.
Do I hear a motion that we approve the 26 plans for the 2014-2016? These inclusive are referred to as our school improvement plans. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve 2014 through 2016 school improvement plans as presented on October 22nd with passion and information that benefited us greatly. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, with a second, does anyone have any additional questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Burns. Next, we have David Johnson, our Finance Director.
Mr. Chairman, board members, and Dr. Stone, I have 3 amendments tonight for your consideration. The first one is a state public school fund in the amount of $126,308. It includes developmental day services, $52,552. School connectivity funding in the amount of $72,306. Classroom reading devices, PRC 84, in the amount of $1,200, and sub-reimbursements through revision number 10. The second amendment will be for the Federal Grants Fund in the amount of $258,150. It is for Title I funding changes and transfers requested by the Director. And the third is for the Special Grants Fund in the amount of $9,408. And that's to appropriate carryover funds for Circles funding remaining at June 30th of 2014. If approved tonight, that'll bring the total budget for Caldwell County Schools to $119,366,520.14.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the budget amendments to the state, federal, and special grants funds as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We appreciate all that you do in the Finance Department. Thank you very much. Next, we had several board members that had an opportunity to go to Asheville to the law conference, always an outstanding conference, and we're going to allow each an opportunity to share some things that they picked up. And I don't know in what order y'all want to
I think I
go.
have day one.
Okay, Dr. Hall's going first, and then Mrs. Darcy.
All right, we had agreed that we would do day 1, 2, and 3 because we had 3 really intense days of getting information and direction from the law conference. And I'll add that that's one of the most significant things that we engage in because of so much that we learn as it impacts us in our own school district. On day 1, there were 4 sessions, and the first session that we attended was entitled, Where Are We Now? Teacher Employment Law 2014-2015 and Beyond. And we had a presenter, Dean Shetley, of an Asheville firm, and he was very, very informing about what has happened and what is about to happen. First, he looked at tenure and it being the root of contention, as Dr. Johnson was speaking about, with that 25% mark that we were glad we did not have to address. It created division in North Carolina to a great extent in each district and within CAE. He discussed that being the root of a lot of contention. Another was the 7% average of the raise that was provided to the school districts, with this amount given after no raises since 2008. And it was very, very clear that this was another bone of contention because of disparity in how the raise that was given was given to most of the beginning teachers and then less and less and less for the experienced teachers. He pointed out that gaps in the law present many questions yet to be answered, so we need to stay in tune to find out what's going to happen there. He also discussed the board's proposals for the performance board compensation, again, that Dr. Johnson presented this evening, with recommendations that all boards present something, even though boards do have the option to opt out of presenting a plan. He thought it was more important that every district present some kind of plan, and it looks like that's where we're headed. And this to the legislature, not to the school board or association or anyone else, but directly to the legislature. And that gives questions, causes questions among some. The second session that we attended was pension spiking. And pension spiking really spiked our interest too, because it was something that we really hadn't addressed in the past. There we found that all kinds of illustrations exist for spiking, which means the latter years of your experience before retirement, you have increases that no matter how they're given to you, but they become part of your retirement package. And this actually, as it was presented to us, creates great problems when the amount exceeds $100,000 for school administrators in particular. At this point in North Carolina, we seem to be in pretty good shape, but the goal is to keep the districts from spiking. And I understand that we in Caldwell County are in a better shape than a lot of districts, and I'm glad to nod to hear that, to look at that. And it really happens in the way you manipulate how funding, how payments are made, or how money is received through various benefits as you prepare to retire in those last years that are calculated. The third session addressed this as well, and those of you that know Jill Wilson, who is with Brooks, Pierce, and Greensboro, she's quite a dynamic individual of law, and she addressed all of us in practical ramifications of pension spike in legislation. She wanted us to see clearly from her illustrations how school boards will be affected, especially when it comes to writing contracts for administrators, if that spike is going to occur over $100,000. So this is something that school boards will be paying more attention to now than ever before. Definitely, I thought it was true with us. Our ears really perked when we were addressing something that we had not faced to this extent before. The fourth session attended was the top 10 things every board member needs to know about school construction contracts. And we were supposed to have these 10 points laid out to us, but this didn't happen, Jim, Dr. Church. What happened was it became a Q&A. It became a whole question and answer session with people from various districts that were having different construction projects, asking so that they could confirm whether or not they were on the right track or not. I think that was the main thing that happened, but it's, there are a couple things that come back to me. It's important to know that you're getting responsible bidders, and it's important to know that you're considering minority bids as well. I think that those of us that were there for Caldwell County, from Caldwell County, were able to kind of nod and say that we're on track. What we're doing is appropriate, it is correct. So we felt good about it. We always kind of have our checks when we go to these law conferences to see where we stand in Caldwell County. So that left us at the end of the first day feeling pretty good about where we stand. Thank you, Jeff. Dr. Church.
Okay. And I have the second day, and I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest condensed version here. One of the first sessions had to do with employment law, and Bob Joyce from the Institute of Government, and I see Dr. Johnson nodding her head. She knows what I'm getting ready to get into. You know, there's a place in the Bible where it talks about the jots and tittles of the law. I think North Carolina employment law has a whole lot of jots and tittles in it because it is so very complex, and being an employment at will state. And one of the things that they did talk about was some of the exceptions to this, and they, of course, defined a tort, which is a legal term, as Mr. Blair hiding over there in the corner was saying that, you know, something that is wrong that will require either a remedy or damages, and this is, of course, what we're trying to avoid as we hire, promote, and sometimes, unfortunately, dismiss employees. And what they were saying was the most common cause of these things is negligent hiring, supervision, or retention of employees. And he mentioned several things that people have to be particularly cognizant of, which, of course, the Civil Rights Act, things like the safety of the public when we are looking at rationale for discharging an employee, intentional infliction, of emotional distress, which can often be tied to sexual misconduct with an employee. So he gave us a very thorough explanation. And again, it's something that I felt like our system is very much aware of. I know Dr. Johnson has been to some of the law conferences, particularly when they've concentrated on employment law, so I know she's up to speed on these things. They also had a session on educating undocumented immigrant children, which was given by the legal counsel for the Arizona School Board Association. And as you can imagine, in Arizona, that is a huge issue. And they deal with this, I mean, literally in every school on a daily basis. And of course, we know that federal law requires us to educate the children who show up at our doors. However, we are allowed to require a certain amount of documentation, that the person bringing the child to school actually has legal custody of the child, that the child is up to date on their vaccinations, that they haven't been expelled from other schools. So things like Social Security number, which we generally ask for, are actually voluntary. So we have to inform the parent that, you know, it's great if you have it, but if you don't, that's okay. There apparently have been some major cases down in Texas where essentially they've tried to get out of using funding to educate undocumented immigrant children. And this has been heard in the Supreme Court, and basically on several occasions they've ruled against what was being done down in Texas. And essentially what the Supreme Court said was children can't control what their parents do. The majority of these little people who end up in the United States are sent or brought by adults. They don't get here on their own. And we cannot punish children in order to control their parents. We are permitted to ask for proof of residency, like an apartment lease, an electric bill, whatever, unless it is homeless. And then again, the law is different. We cannot require a birth certificate because in many countries, they just don't bother with things like that. So he went over a number of things, and as I say, I think it's the kind of thing that our staff are aware of, but need to be increasingly aware of as we do see more. And after what happened this summer with a very large number of undocumented children coming into the United States, you know, I've heard that around the state of North Carolina there were considerably more than we have normally seen. So these are the things that apply to that. There was also a session on social media, and this is something that we have discussed as a board, and we do have in our policy, and the striking the fine balance between an employee's First Amendment rights versus impact on the school system. Does this have something to do with their actual official duties? They talked about defamation of character, cyberbullying, insubordination, all the different things that could show up on any of these social networks. And one of the interesting things they said was that the social media sites are not required by law to remove defamatory remarks. So if Mr. Ackerman goes on Facebook and says, those board members are fruitcakes, we can't call Facebook and say, make them take it off. Mr. Ackerman wouldn't do that. I'm picking on you because you're right there in front of me. We know you wouldn't do that. But some of the important questions that they said when you're trying to decide about do you need to take action against an employee, it says, are people reading it? Is it believable? Is the person posting it credible? Is it a public concern, and who is damaged? So one of the things that we do have to look at are these different issues. It was, you know, very interesting, and I think is something that we see much more of these days than we ever used to. I think it is prevalent in our schools, and we have to be sure that we let all of our staff know which things are appropriate and which things are not.
Thank you. On the last day, we had several different things. One that deals with student wellness policies and in conjunction with that, nutrition, and also the role of SROs in our school, as well as working with our board attorney. Let me just mention a couple things here. Student wellness policies, they guide the system in how to provide and create the best possible nutrition program within the school system in conjunction with physical activities. We know that the local wellness policy must provide nutritional value and guidelines for all foods and all beverages that are available on campus throughout the school day. And obviously these must be not only in conjunction with the state requirements, but also with federal requirements. And going hand in hand with that is the physical education program and the activity that students are involved with on a weekly basis. The goals established by state board policy include, in the elementary school, 150 minutes weekly of quality physical education, and that is with a certified teacher, physical education teacher. For middle schools, 225 minutes, and half of that must be in physical activity, and the other part can be in healthful living education. So actually we had two sessions that that morning that dealt with nutrition. The first one was on student wellness policies, and then we had one later in the morning that talked about changes in the child nutrition laws. But also another part was the role of our SROs and some of the issues that come up, some of the common blunders that take place between SROs and the relationship within the schools. We know that in order to ensure that we have a good working relationship there must be a trust and a good partnership there, and I think we're fortunate in this county that we have good leadership in regards to that from the Sheriff's Department and in our schools. And also there was a session that dealt with working with your school board attorney. The relationship, the expectation and responsibilities. And we feel very fortunate that we have Mr. Blair as our attorney. We realize that in some cases the relationship may not be as good as what we have here in Caldwell County, so we're very fortunate, and we thank Mr. Blair for that. But anyway, it's a great session. Anytime we go to these law conferences, we always learn a tremendous amount and a lot of changes that take place within the state and things that we have to take a look at and consider. So we are fortunate to be able to go and to learn more about school law in our state and in our county. Okay, the next item on our agenda is for information purposes. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Stone.
All right, I have two items. One I want to remind you about tomorrow is Veterans Day, and if you're still listening to us out there, we have two major events going on in Caldwell County that we invite you to. Carol, I'll bet you invite them to the Granite Falls one, but reminder that Lenore in downtown Lenore has a veterans ceremony. I think that's at 11. Carol?
And we will be dedicating the new Veterans Memorial tomorrow at 11:11.
And I think that's what, World War II and Korean veterans?
All of
All
them.
veterans.
All of them. And if you haven't seen it, go by. If you haven't, if you can't go to the ceremony, you need to go by and see it. And it's especially beautiful at night. It's really breathtaking at night.
All right. So plenty of events. Also, board members, I've given you two items. One is Queenie and Little Joe. I thought you might enjoy reading this over the Christmas break to your grandchildren. But I do want to call your attention to, if you will open the book, grandchildren or children or others. This is illustrated by Shannon Brown. You may not know Shannon Brown, but that is Miss Coffey's son. So he is quite an artist, and so I wanted you to see that. The other is you have a ticket to an event going on in Lenore around the Christmas season. So, and this, by the way, this book was written by Joe Sinclair. He was the one who came to the board just a few weeks ago and talked to us from RESA. And that would be it, other than a congratulations to those members who were elected. Congratulations to Mrs. Branch for election to the board.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Stone. Do I hear a motion that we go into closed session?
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. There will be no action once we return. We thank you for being here this evening. So we're going into closed session at this time. Thank you very much.
Can we start with? Okay, we'll wait.